Valma. I'm here with a belated January wrap up. Now, like most people I know, I've got a stinky cold at the moment, so you may experience quite a few jump cuts as I stop to wipe my nose. How glamorous. But I read 8 books in January with a mixture of 2 to 5 star ratings. It was a really good start to the year for me. I want to read 50 books, so I'm definitely on course for that. And yeah, it was good. Now, only 7 are recorded on Goodreads because the first one I finished about 2 o'clock in the morning on the 1st of January. Rock and roll party. But because of the way Goodreads works, the challenge didn't kind of kick in till the afternoon afterwards, but I'm still counting it because I know it was 2017 when I finished this. I actually read it pretty much in one sitting. It's Bodies of Water by V.H. Leslie. It's only a short novella, this, about 130 pages. But I did enjoy it. If you like gothic, dark fiction, this is definitely one for you. We've got Kirsten, who in the modern day moves into a flat on the banks of the River Thames, which is a converted Victorian hydrotherapy hospital. So it's a dual narrative. We have the story of a lady in Victorian times who is visiting the institution for therapy, and the way their stories kind of collide. Kirsten starts to notice ghostly figures on the banks of the Thames, water in places there shouldn't be water, and the story builds to quite a satisfying, rounded climax. I like the writing here. I thought the theme of water was used very well. The pages practically drip with the imagery. It's fab. But the characters were really sketchy for me. But it was a solid 3 stars overall. And the second book I haven't even got a physical copy of because I just gave it away. I wasn't that interested in it. It was Fellside by M.R. Carey. Now, I read The Girl with All the Gifts last year, which was a real big seller, was made into a film, I believe, and it was filmed fairly locally to me, some parts, but I haven't seen it yet. That is a real fast-paced, zombie-themed thriller that I enjoyed, and many of my friends who read it enjoyed, so I thought I'd pick up Fellside. Fellside's another thriller, and it tells the story of a lady, I can't remember her name unfortunately, who we joined at the beginning of the story in the aftermath of a burns incident. She's very badly burnt, and we find out she's actually been convicted of the murder of somebody, a little boy who died in the fire, the same fire. She gets moved to a female prison in the north of England, and we have a few different storylines. There's a supernatural element here. The little boy starts to visit her in her dreams and help her solve the mystery of what really happened that night, and then we have more kind of prosaic real life politics and fights between the inmates of the prison. Some people compared it to Orange is the New Black, but for me that was erroneous. There was absolutely no humour in this book whatsoever. It was gritty and dark, and if you like that sort of thing then you'll love it, but I don't think prison narratives are for me, and the supernatural element couldn't save this for me. The writing was good quality, but the story's just not my bag, so I gave it 2 stars. My next book was My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. There's not much I can say about this that hasn't already been said on BookTube. This was the choice for my real life book group this month, and I have to say most of them weren't really keen. I liked it. It tells the story of 2 girls growing up in Naples in the 1950s. And about how their friendship develops from being a young age only into their mid-teens. This is the first of a trilogy, so the pacing is quite slow. I thought the writing was beautiful. I enjoyed kind of the insight into all the characters in the village. They're all quite well drawn, but the friendship between the 2 girls was fascinating. I think a lot of teenage narratives are written in the young adult genre, which isn't for me at all. No Perks of a Wallflower, thank you very much. But I really enjoyed seeing the teenage experience here, and there was a lot I could recognise in their competitive element and feeling that everybody has got something that you haven't, and kind of the budding romances. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't reach necessarily for the other 2 in the trilogy, but if they came my way I'd read them, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was Shirley Jackson, The Haunting of Hill House, another popular one on BookTube. Now this one I didn't perhaps enjoy as much as My Brilliant Friend. Another gothic scary one about 4 disparate characters who end up in a haunted house. Pretty classic kind of haunted house story, this one. And it raced along, and there was a couple of scenes here which were really petrifying. You read from the point of view of one of the female characters, who's a fairly neurotic spinsterish soul, and there's one scene where she's in bed and she shares a room with one of the other guests, and there is some sort of presence knocking on the doors of all the rooms up the corridor. It was absolutely terrifying, really, really scary, and very, very well done. Unfortunately, although the writing I can see is very, very good, it just didn't jive with me for some reason. I struggled with her style. I'm not sure if I'd read a lot of other works by her. I thought the ending was just a bit daft and silly, so that limited it to 3 stars from me. The next book I really, really did enjoy. Now this one I think most of you would have read. It's Lord of the Flies by William Goulding. And if, like me, you haven't read it until fairly recently, you probably still know a bit about it. If you don't, it is about a group of boys who get shipwrecked on a desert island after a plane crash with no adults, and about how politics and factions and savagery ensues as they try and find their way around the island. So this is an old 60s paperback that I came across in a shop. I don't know if you can see the sketchy drawing on the front of the characters, not very clear. But in the middle there, you could just about see Piggy with his broken glasses. Now, there's a cast of hundreds, it seems, of boys here, but there's a few we get to know quite well. There's Ralph, who heads up the tribe. There's Jack, who kind of heads up the breakout group. And Piggy, who is the overweight, asthmatic little boy who represents kind of, in the wider scheme, law and order and justice and the right way of doing things. Piggy has glasses with which they can use to spark the fire, showing that even without physical prowess, everybody is important to society in their own way. And I don't really want to spoil the events of here, but it's absolutely... it's really, really distressing and really, really upsetting. I think as a mother I found it upsetting knowing that all these children were on an island with no one to look after them. But you know what happens to some of our characters here, not just Piggy but some of the others. There's another character called Simon, who we suspect is epileptic and seems to have insights from a higher level, and he's the one who talks to the Lord of the Flies. But a really disturbing book. If you haven't read it, you absolutely should read it. The prose again was a little bit kind of turgid at times. Some of the description of the island I could have done without, but a real classic story and one not to be missed if you have so far. I had a sick day a couple of weeks ago from another cold, and I decided to look on Netflix to see if chance there was a Lord of the Flies film there, and I think for the first time ever something I looked for on Netflix was actually there, and there was a Lord of the Flies film, but it was one filmed in 1990 I think, and it was really rubbish. So if you think the film will do instead of the book, in this case it won't. I gave this 4 stars. The next 2 books I read were 4 diversathons, so I've already done a separate video on those. That was Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I loved that, gave it 5 stars. I'm reading another one of hers this month. And the other one was the audiobook, The Underground Railroad, which I thought was very well done, but perhaps could have been better, and I gave that one 4 stars. So yeah, I'll link my video below if you're interested in hearing more about those. The last book I read was this one, which was a real surprise. I bought this in a charity shop and I don't even know why I picked it up, because I hadn't heard anything about it. It transpires since that quite a few of my friends in the community, by which I mean people whose booktube channels I watch that I'm linked with on Goodreads, had read it and scored it fairly highly. But yeah, I'm not sure why I picked it up, because when I sat down to read it, I read that it was set in the future and it was about a caravan of Shakespearean performers, and I saw a picture of a deer on the front and I thought, oh, this is going to be floaty fairy whimsy and not really my thing. But I was pleasantly surprised, because this is an apocalyptic tale, which I love, a slight dystopian future, which I love, and it focuses on again, different timelines about the end of the world, the immediate aftermath of an outbreak of flu in our current time, and then a fast forward into the future and how people are existing to a new way of life. So the main character, he doesn't really appear. The main character dies in the beginning. There's a guy called Arthur, who's an actor, who dies on stage the night that the flu epidemic starts to take hold, and we see how people who were touched in Arthur's life, how they cope with the new world. So it follows his ex-wife, the paramedic who jumps up on stage to try and help him, a little girl who's also part of the theatre troupe who ends up growing up into an actress in the real world, and how their kind of lives splinter off into the future and the the things they get up to. I thought this was beautifully done. I thought it was really imaginative. It painted quite a realistic picture of a dystopian future, which to me, the narrative is so dominated by things like The Walking Dead, where we'd all like to think that in the future things wouldn't be quite that desperate and it would be completely lawless. There are elements of Walking Dead-esque violent characters in here, but there's also people making a positive future for themselves with very limited resources, and some people taking over an airport and turning it into a real new future. So this was a real charming read. I only gave it 4 stars because for me the writing was lacking a little bit of something in literary flair, so it has to be something quite special to get the 5-star from me, and I felt like the story was better than the writing here. But if you haven't seen this one and you like dystopian type future tales, check it out, especially if, like me, your real interest lies in that immediate period after, in how people cope when they can't buy food and everything starts to close down. I thought that was really well executed. So that was that. That was the month that was. Pretty good from me. Please let me know if you've read any of these or you have any thoughts on them. I'd be really interested to chat in the comments below. And I'll be back next time. Thank you very much.